All right, hi everyone. I would like to introduce Akiva Werber from the Jewish Agency. He's been working there for 22 years. He retired from the Jewish Agency, and without further ado, Akiva, would you like to share with us a little bit about your Aliyah experience? Like, when did you make Aliyah?
Sure. A bunch of things. First of all, I was actually with the Jewish Agency for 25 years.
Oh, 25.
After I left that, I went and worked for the municipality of Jerusalem for 7 years, dealing with Aliyah from English-speaking countries in both cases. Uh, I, I actually, many years ago, as a young man, married with a deeply pregnant wife, was part of a garin, a group of people who had gotten together under the influence of Bnei Akiva, and we set up a group of some tens of young couples moving to kibbutz. And we moved to the Negev in 1975 to help strengthen kibbutz Alomim, which was a young kibbutz on the border then of Gaza, which was not an independent area, but part of the territory of Israel after the Six-Day War. So I started off as a kibbutznik and actually lived there for 13 years, at which time, about that time, I was on shlichut for Bnei Akiva in North America. And towards the end of that shlichut, started working with the Aliyah department and ran the Aliyah office in Brooklyn. That connected me to something I'd never been really connected to before, the bureaucracies of the Jewish Agency. For us in those days, Jewish Agency was a joke. It was these people who worked behind desks, and we were the kibbutznikim who were building the land, livnotu lehibanot ba. And even though I had my degree in political science and Judaic studies from Brooklyn College and a good solid yeshiva education from Tiferet Yerushalayim, learned for many years in the yeshiva. Even so, we came on Aliyah. I ran the avocado orchards in the kibbutz. So that was the type of thing, Torah va'avodah, to learn Torah, to be educated, but to work the land and to be part of that blessing of your hands in the dirt. But on that shlichut with Bnei Akiva, I also represented the religious kibbutz movement and programs on kibbutz, Ulpan, Aliyah, year programs, the short-term experiences on kibbutz, and from there fell into the Aliyah department and ran the office in Aliyah in Brooklyn. I became so enthralled with this idea and really got into the details. The Aliyah department took notice of me and asked me to join them and to be part of their operation. Eventually taking over the entire operation, the North American desk of the Aliyah department, to help facilitate Aliyah for others. Important job. It's to promote Aliyah. It was to run the Aliyah offices. It was to find shlichim and train shlichim to go out and help people make Aliyah. It was to deal with every individual file coming from North America for people who wanted to make Aliyah, to get the permissions, to get the rights and eligibilities from the different government agencies, and to help people actually prepare for moving to Israel, and helping them set up, whether in a Merkaz Klita, absorption centers, or different opportunities and programs in preparation for that Aliyah.
Okay.
All this is pre-fax, we used to work by telegram if you needed a fast message. It was
Wow.
or diplomatic mail. It was an interesting experience when I first shlichut. Eventually, we got into faxes, and then we got into email. We were among the first people to start email with Hebrew University's facilities. So that was interesting experiences.
Right.
So again, my wife and I made Aliyah to kibbutz, and shortly after arriving, we had our first child. All of our three children were born on kibbutz, and thank God, all here and all doing well.
Very nice. You still live on the kibbutz, or where you
I'm
live?
sorry?
Do you still live on the kibbutz?
We made Aliyah to kibbutz in 1975 and left kibbutz Alomim, which is again in northern Negev near Gaza, and today part of that Gaza envelope, that area that is being bombarded by Gaza, the kibbutz is still there, and the avocado orchards that I planted are still there. We are not. We left in 1988. and moved to Gush Etzion, and we live in Elazar in Gush Etzion, and have been living here since 1988. So that's our experience here.
Very nice. So I think we titled the the video as if Aliyah is appropriate. So can we get into that?
Yeah, Aliyah is always an interesting thing, and it's a big thing. It's life changing. Those of us who grew up in the United States or any of the English-speaking countries have a dual identity. You're Jew at home, and you're citizen outside. So yeah, they come together at some points, but there are different identities, and it's not a single identity. Just like people never, certainly in Western countries, never really expose their whole self to everyone. Whenever you talk to someone, you're always hiding stuff. You're always letting a little bit of yourself out, but not everything. So, for example, if you, Ariel, were talking to your friends who lived on your block, they're not quite the same information of the people who you go to school with. And they're not quite the same information about you as your cousins. And they're not the same as your siblings. And they're not the same information of someone who you might be learning in yeshiva with. Everyone knows a little bit about Ariel, but it's a different Ariel. And sometimes it can be very discombobulating if you have an event and your cousins come, as do your friends from school at the same meeting, because you don't know who they know is about you. And this dissonance can be very, very problematic because you're not a full, complete person who's exposed to everyone. You're different people to different people.
Right. It's like we're wearing different masks with different individuals who we're encountering.
100%. And therefore, a true kibbutznik is very problematic if you're a real full kibbutznik and coming from the West, because the person you work with is the person who you eat with, whose children you take care of, who takes care of your children, who sits on committees making decisions about you, and you making decisions about them on other committees, and you know everything about them. And that can be very disconcerting sometimes because there is no defense of non-vision of parts of you. But that's another story and another thing to talk about. What is important here, however, is because of this, we don't always talk to ourselves as a full person at all times. What do I mean? We're always running. You always have to do and get things done, and you're always busy because there are things that are important that you want to do, but there are also all those things which got to be done tomorrow. You got a deadline. You got to do this. But I want to build my house. No, you can't right now because you got to go ahead and get your payment in for the kids' school, and you got to go ahead and you got to fix the car, and you got to go ahead and you got to take care of this hospital thing, and you're constantly running and trying to catch up. And because of that, we so much focus and minor focus on the urgent that we miss the important. I'll give you an example, and what I mean through a metaphor. In the Army, I was a lot in the Army, fun place. I was once on a field shooting range, and in a shooting range, you're kind of lighting down, and with a gun, and you take the gun, and you aim the two back pieces and the front piece, and you aim it towards the target. And I had my eye closed, and I'm on the ground, trying to shoot and aim. And along comes the guy who's in charge of this shooting range operation and smacks me on the helmet. What the hell are you doing? He said, why do you have your other eye closed? I said, what do you mean why I have the other? I got to look here and aim and focus, and I'm focusing on the target. He said, idiot, how do you know you're aiming at the right target? Think about that. There are 20 targets there. He said, you need the open eye to make sure the target you're aiming at is the one that's yours and not everyone's.
Right.
Then you can minor focus on hitting the target in the center in the bullseye. And that's the same with us. Because when we're dealing with all of those urgencies, you're spending all that energy on minor focusing on what's important to do that moment to get this done. But what about the important things? Are you sitting in the right place? Are you doing the right thing in life? Are you minor focusing on things that are irrelevant because that's what you're doing instead of what's important to do for your whole life? And the example is, if I'm living in Israel and I'm paying taxes, as an example, and I pay 25% taxes on the capital gains, 15% on interest. I'm paying, depending on my tax bracket, on how much I'm earning. Now that money is subdivided. A lot of that money is going to social welfare. A lot of it is going to disabled people. A lot of that is going to kids in distress. A lot of this is going to all sorts of social programs, towards education, towards health, towards running a government and a people and supporting everything that's functioning. Do I have to give tzedakah? Or am I already giving that tzedakah through my taxes in a Jewish state where my money is used for defense, health and welfare? And even if I'm paying, 20%, maybe 10% is already going and covering all those things. I don't have to pay tzedakah because I did. Because that's my responsibility in building the land and being part of the land just by living. Every action that I do is a mitzvah of building the land, building the people, and keeping things moving. In America, they might be important, but I give 10% tzedakah maybe, or not. But Israel, my whole life is fulfilling mitzvah just by breathing and living and doing and eating the holy fruit from the land, which is imbibing the holiness of the land that I'm eating. Right. Maybe that's what's important. And therefore, the important decision is, where should I be living? Should I be living in America? Or should I be living in the land that God said, you have to go there? In the Torah, for those of us who do follow the Torah readings, there are three things that God says. I'm going to give you a land. You will inherit it. Right? I will give it to you as an inheritance, and you will inherit it. And then God says, V'yashavta, and you will inhabit it. Mm-hmm. Why does God have to say that? By the way, he says that 3 different times. He says the repetition of, I'm going to give you something, you're going to inherit, you're going to take possession, you're going to inherit it, and then you're going to live on it. Why so many different times? And why say 3 different times? The reason is because he knows, we're going to take a present, we'll sell it and rent it to someone else and make money on it. No, he wants you there. He wants you to be building it. He wants you to be there with all of the Jewish people. And he wants you to go ahead and physically be part of that. And if we understand that as like the guy on the field, make sure you're in the right target, then you can micro-focus on how do I make that happen? And not just the important for the second. And why do I say that? I mean, that's on a religious level, but there's also on the physical level. In America, in New York, I had a terrible situation where I knew, I was living next to neighbors and I didn't know who they were. You can be living in an apartment building for tens of years and not even know who your neighbors are, because everyone wants their privacy in their little corner and not necessarily get involved. I live now in a Yishuv Kehilati. I've lived before in a kibbutz. Everyone knows everyone. And everyone does for everyone. We have committees for every sort of. And Israel as a society is a society where it's not like when you go through a toll booth. I don't know if they have them anymore in America. We used to go through a toll booth and used to pay the toll. The guy used to say, "Good day," with his big plastic smile. And he didn't care if you died or not, but he gave a smile and said, "Good day," because politically correct, but he didn't care. Or in my day, you can have a person who got smacked in the head in the subway or tripped and fell down and is lying prone on the subway floor, and people just walked over him because no one wanted to be involved because they were afraid or intimidated or not wanting to get connected. And now I think it's even worse with what's going on in America in terms of not wanting to connect and make eye contact even with someone else out there because it's dangerous. Here in Israel, it's totally different. I told this story, I think, before, Ariel. This young lady gets on a bus on a cold, wintry, rainy day with a child in her arm and groceries in the other arm, and they walk onto the bus, and the jacket is closed incorrectly with a button, and she gets on the bus, one hand with the baby, one hand with the groceries, and the other hand to try to pay, getting onto the bus, and she's not doing well. There's this old lady in the seat, just on the other side of the driver, who sees this, and she yells at this young lady who's all wet in a steamy bus, damp, open jacket, and says, "How dare you take that child and not dress that child properly?" Now, in America, if that would happen, what would be the reaction? In New York, next to First Avenue and 24th Street, outside of Bellevue Hospital, what would they do? They take this old lady and they put her in Bellevue, because who the hell are you to tell this lady what to do? In Israel, what's the reaction on the bus? Everyone applauds. Why? Because the old lady then comes over, takes the baby out of her hand, lets her pay for her getting on. The old lady sits down again and tells the kid who's sitting next to her, "Get out of the seat and let this lady sit down here with her kid." And she's now adopted this child who she's never seen before as her grandchild. Her complaining to the lady was in order to connect and to help. And the bus applauds because they love seeing this woman reconnecting with this grandchild who she never met before, and to help her out. And that's why we want to live in Israel, because that's the way the society is. You're not alone. You're among friends automatically.
Right.
So there's the religious, indication, but there's the people indication and the peoplehood. And we want you here now. That's when you have to know about, is it right to make Aliyah or not? It's all good. How many times have you come to visit here and said, "Why am I leaving?" So I think that's the first and important insight about, is it right to make Aliyah on a national level, on a Jewish level, on a family level? And is it right because I feel part of a people and I don't want to be disconnected? I want to be part of stage one of Jewish history with people who are my friends and want to be part with me of this stage one of Jewish history. The majority of Jewish children today live in Israel. Israel is the largest Jewish country, largest population of Jews in the world. In our generation, Israel is going to be a country where the majority of Jews live, which hasn't happened since the first temple.
Wow.
And it's the first time in 3,000 years, 2,500 years, that such a thing has happened. And we're part of that. The question is, are we going to accept the challenge when our children ask us, "Gee, Israel in one generation had an ingathering of the majority of Jews. In one generation, from destruction to a flowering. Israel became one of the major nations in the world in terms of technology, in terms of science, in terms of development, in terms of innovation. Israel has, in one generation, regained Jerusalem as the eternal capital of the Jewish people after establishing a state because we thought it was going to be destroyed and not be founded in 1948. All this in one generation.
Right.
Maybe someone's telling us something, and that's part of that picture that we have to look at and say, what is important? And then when your child says 10 years from now, "Abba, where were you when God called us?" What are you going to answer? It's like that joke. Remember the joke where the guy has a dream and he says, "God's going to save you"? You know the joke?
Remind me again.
So the guy has a dream and says, "Don't worry, there's going to be a catastrophe, but I'm going to be there to save you." And he wakes up and he's shaken. He doesn't know what.
Right.
Next day, they announce there's a hurricane on the way, and there's going to be tremendous floods that have never seen tidal. Suddenly, the rains start torrentially coming down, and this guy is in his house, and the streets are totally flooded. Everything is backed up. they're coming by with these big, enormous trucks with wheels that are, 6 feet high, and they're coming to rescue and evacuate everyone. And they come to his house and say, come on, let's get out before this flood is going to drown us. He says, no, God is going to help me. The next hours, things continue. By nightfall, they're in boats because the flood, everything is flooded to up in the sky, and they're coming around with boats and saying, get in the boats, the place is flooding, let's get out of here, evacuate. He said, nah, God is going to save me. The next morning, the house is covered to the second floor, and he's on his roof. And they come by with a helicopter. And they said, you're the last guy in town, get on here and we'll save you. He said, no, God's going to save me. And he goes and he waits there. And suddenly, glug, glug, he drowns. His soul goes up to the pearly gates in heaven. And he comes in front of the tribunal of the Holy Lord. And there, he says to the tribunal, God, where were you? God says, schmuck, who do you think was in the truck? Who do you think was in the boat? And who do you think was in the helicopter? Idiot.
Yeah, no, I heard this story. The joke.
But put that in context of the saving of the Jewish people, Jerusalem, our capital, the country being founded, Jerusalem, our capital, majority of Jews coming home and beginning to return, the nations beginning to appreciate and allow Israel in Jerusalem as our capital, all in one generation. Where were you?
Right.
Well, I don't know. Got to make a decision.
Right.
What is the important and what is the urgent?
What is the important and what is the urgent? Mm-hmm.
Right. And I think you have to make sure you do
right.
the important first, and then you'll know what's urgent.
Right. Yeah. And obviously this is very subjective, meaning each individual, each family has their own, importance and,
You have to define your own priorities, but I'm just throwing in a few things here on the sidelines that might be greater and bigger and important, and you have to decide. I mean, yes, there are fears of leaving something which is familiar and you've been successful with to something which is not familiar and perhaps you won't succeed as well. Us perfectionists have a problem because you don't like to do anything unless you do it right. That's why some people don't learn Hebrew. It's not because they're stupid. It's because they're afraid to use Hebrew because they're not as proficient in it as they are in their English.
Right.
So the answer is you make mistakes and you go ahead and you make a fool of yourself. And then within a year, that won't be the case.
Right. Does the Jewish agency help with determining, what's important and what's urgent in order to make Aliyah, or that's just really dependent on the individual?
Every person has to make their own individual decision. No one's going to tell you, yes, you got to make Aliyah. They're going to maybe motivate you or help you, as I'm trying to do here, and give you some pointers that may give you some direction and help you out with it. But if you do decide you want to make Aliyah, that's why we have the Aliyah Network, in order to go ahead and to give you connections and tools to make it more easily able to succeed in doing what you have to or want to do, to practice, to meet people, to go ahead and to make sure that you understand how things are done in Israel and start doing some of those things in advance, to learn how to go ahead and understand the situations correctly, and to have people help you along the way with advice and with physical help and with connections. And that's what we're here all about. And that's what Nefesh B'Nefesh it does as well. And that's why we start with Nefesh B'Nefesh, which is, I remember when they first got started, Rabbi Fass and Tony Gelbart got together and decided it's important to make Aliyah, and it's a mitzvah to make Aliyah, and we have to go ahead and support it. For the first time, an American Jewish organization recognized Aliyah as a mitzvah and as something important to do and something that is charitable, and we want to help and convince people that it's a good thing to do and will help you along the way. And they've done a wonderful job in giving Aliyah a whole different perspective. And I think it's a good thing and a wonderful thing, and together with partnerships of the Jewish Agency and the Ministry of Immigrant Absorption, and the Jewish National Fund, and others all along the way helping out. All of these young Chayalim who want to come and to serve, to help their people before making that Aliyah, and the scouts go ahead and train them in Garin Sabar. Talking about hundreds of people, 300 people a year from the diaspora coming and joining. These are all wonderful groups that are helping along and to make these things feasible. Right. So yes, one starts connecting with Nefesh B'Nefesh and gives them the basic information they need to get things started in a process. But then along the way, they work with the Jewish Agency eligibility section, start connecting you to government agencies, all before you even leave your cozy chair.
Right, right. And just to clarify, Nefesh B'Nefesh just deals with North America and the United Kingdom, correct?
Well, it officially in the agreements with the Jewish Agency and the Ministry of Immigrant Absorption, it deals with North America. So that's their purview, and that's where their expertise is, and they are the first contact, and it's on their website that you upload your basic information, which is then also shared with the Jewish Agency eligibility section and the parts that are necessary for the government agencies to define your eligibility, rights, and benefits along the way.
Right. Actually, if you have like one more minute, there is an individual who actually posted a question in the comments. I don't know if you could see it, but would you have a minute to answer it?
Yeah, is that in chats?
That's in no, it's on Facebook itself. It's by Alice Gross.
I'm on the I'm sorry, I'm on the I don't see. I'm looking under chats here.
Oh, no one's on Zoom. This is on Facebook. Because
okay.
We're live on Facebook.
Gotcha. So let me see if I can get into my Facebook. Would I see it there?
Yeah, you would see it in the comments on the post.
Hold on. Let me see if I can open that up. Sorry.
It's okay.
Facebook. There we go. Whoops. There are people hitting me on Messenger here as well. The real, okay. Why am I seeing it? Is Aliyah appropriate? I'm sorry that I don't actually see it. You asked the question for it, just read it out. And,
yeah, I can read it. So this is by Alice Gross. The question is, would you say as a senior, you might have more difficulty being adjusted? Sometimes I think the culture, law.
I see it.
Okay.
Hold on. Let me ask the question. Okay. Sorry. You might have more difficulty being adjusted. Sometimes I think the culture. I see it. Culture, laws, etc., might be overwhelming. Even though I have a son and many friends in Israel, of course. Okay. Right. So.
Oh, I think you're on mute, Akiva.
Yeah, I see it now, and I got it. Okay. So it was saying that it's more difficult for seniors. Right now I just dealt with someone who just came out of, I dealt personally this summer with 16 families and individuals who wanted to make Aliyah, but were running into sorts of difficulties and bureaucracies and issues because of special cases. And they needed someone to hold their hand and to help them guide them through understanding what was actually happening. The last of those people came on Aliyah 2 weeks ago, 10 days ago, and just yesterday got out of isolation after making their Aliyah. She's almost my age. She's retired, widowed twice, but has several children here in Israel, and she is doing very well. She has a little difficulty with Hebrew, but so she's mostly English based. But she's here in Jerusalem, where English is, a well-known language and well used. And she has some friends from youth and people who made Aliyah before, and some of the children. But there are other organizations, especially here in Jerusalem, whether it's the OU Center, or whether it's Bet Avichai, or whether it's the Begin Center, or whether it's the Association of Americans, Canadians in Israel, which is a big operation as well. OU Center has different groups and stuff. And Chabad in Rehavia. Each one of these groups has enormous numbers of people around it who have built communities. And several of them are mixing communities that that work with each other. We have an enormous amount who are working Soldiers Center in the name of Michael Levine, who serves lone soldiers from Israel and from abroad. And there are an enormous amount of volunteers, uh, seniors, who supply food and advisory and help and financial assistance and intervention when necessary for government agencies and for Army, uh, and just general advisory of what to do and how to do it in the Army. Uh, so those are things that people get involved in order to work with others who are like them in order to do things positively in a social framework of their own, aside from studies, aside from trips, aside from learning, aside from going to cultural events. Uh, so there is an enormous amount of potential if you're interested and you want to just get out and be part of. And we're all here to help you do that.
Right.
So I think, no, I think it's actually golden age. Uh, because by living on, a pension, you don't have to worry about any of the other things around you. And you're
So you're saying it's the golden age, the senior's age is the golden age to make Aliyah.
Well, I think younger ages too, for other reasons, because getting those groups for the kids, and the kids who grow up here are different kids. They learn responsibility at an earlier age. They learn independence at an earlier age, and they learn to be part of society as not kids who get shoved in the background, but
Right.
are part of the taking life into hand
Right.
age through B'nai
Yeah.
Akiva and through taking responsibility for all. I mean, the kids here in our community who volunteer for everything, the people who are locked up because of the contagion, or people who are not capable of doing everything. For this year, for the first year, I had some kids who demanded to help build my sukkah. They wouldn't let me do it alone. So we did it together. It was a great event.
Right. I mean, the truth is, like, it's interesting you say that, because I've been noticing most of my clients right now, they're senior citizens. I have 3 clients right now, one from Minnesota, one from South Carolina, and another, actually, he lives in New York, but we're helping him sell his house in Florida. And they all want to make Aliyah. Just seniors, like I asked them, like, how come? They gave me their answers. We could talk about that later. But
I as this young lady who just made Aliyah, 65-year-old, she said she's now starting stage 4 of life. There was a bachelorette, there was the first marriage, there was a second marriage, and now Aliyah. And now she's been here for a week,
right.
2 weeks, and she's already starting to make all of these contacts all over the place. And she is eager to go because she's got energy, and boy, there are outlets here to go galore.
Yeah. It's fascinating. I mean, like one of my clients, I think she's 65 to 70. I forgot exactly. She's been itching to make Aliyah for years now, and she's like, I just want to go. It's just the right time for me. I have no responsibilities, no nothing, and just want to retire there and just live out the rest of my
100%.
life there. Yeah. So
100%. But the important thing is remembering Aliyah is not an end. Aliyah is a beginning, because it opens up into a whole new life, and connections galore, and opportunities that you wouldn't believe.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I guess that's yeah.
Yeah, we only took 20 minutes more than we expected.
Yeah. Look, I mean, the fact is, this is very educational. And maybe we should do more of these. Maybe we could pick up a different topic each time.
We should do that where we have people who can ask questions live, so we can have interaction.
That is true. That is a good point. Maybe we can arrange that. But either way, this is a very informational, educational live interview. And I hope we gave some value to our viewers. And if we have given value, please like and share our page, share the video. We know that there are many potential Alim out there who may want to make Aliyah. and these videos, I believe, give that value. Thank you very much, Akiva. It was very educational.